I want to recognize some people that have played a big role in the success of today. The first person I'd like to recognize is our board chairman, Hank Cruz. I would like to recognize our board member, Tom Sadeka. Our board advisor in the back of the room, Mary Beth Weiss. Our board advisor, Hillary Till. I would like to recognize our director of IT, Craig Majerus. And also our Director of Operations, Basha Sikora. And I would like to thank the public officials that stand with us here today. This is a 90% issue with the people of Illinois, and we are the champions of it. I'm open for questions.
Hannah, you said about 95%'s online. What's in that 5% that you just don't have it?
Well, each individual police and fire district across Illinois has to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request, and there's between 50 and 75 of those local districts that just have not responded to our request. Furthermore, it's very interesting, the Chicago Public Schools were only able to get the data through the year 2007 because 08, 09, and 10 simply has not been compiled yet.
Chicago Police? Chicago Police, did they cooperate?
They did.
Did Democrats decline to show up, or were they not invited?
Well, I invited State Representative Jack Franks out of Marengo, and he has spent time in Cuba over the last couple days, and so he did text me back, but he was not able to be here today.
Does the Republican nature of this endanger the 501c3 status in any way?
Well, I respect Kirk Gillard greatly. We're a 501c4, so we can advocate policy, and we're not subject to the constraints of a C3.
Mr. Grogan, could I ask you a question? I work at WBBM Radio. You talked about people, citizen volunteers finding anomalies. Could you drill down a little bit and explain to, say, an OCD with a laptop at 4 in the morning? How might they, what would constitute an anomaly? What would be sought?
Well, so for instance, as an auditor, some of the things we look for would be, say for instance, I know my cousin works at the local 7-Eleven, and I know that they work there full time, but then I go and see that they're making 6 figures working for the Tollway Authority. Well, that sounds like that's a full-time job too, so how can they have 2 full-time jobs? So things like that might end up, causing the attention of someone to go and look into something like that.
Senator Radon, the same question is, shouldn't there be some Democrats up there? I mean, this is being postulated as sort of a, for the good of Illinois, which would include Republicans, Democrats, but it seems like it's being used basically as a political hammer, presented that way.
Well, it certainly is not intended to be used that way. I was not the one inviting, but I know there are Democrats who have very much championed transparency, and I think that they will be very excited about this opportunity. Susan Garrett's one that has traditionally been very interested in those issues. So again, I was not in charge of the invitee list, but I know there's Democrats who will be excited about this, and I welcome their participation, and if legislation comes out of this, we will most certainly seek to have them involved in it.
I also want to cover our good government nonpartisan history of working with Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. After DuPage County, Bob Grogan opened the books in DuPage County and posted his checkbook. The very next county to do it was actually Cook County itself, where we won a vote on the Cook County Board of 10-7 to post the checkbook. Just recently this fall, Madison County out of St. Louis, a Democratic board with about 21 Democrats on that board and about 6 Republicans in Madison County, and it has the reputation of Cook County. They also published their checkbook online. So we have a long track record of working across the aisle. It's interesting. Much of the things that we've accomplished with our website was contained in the last legislative cycle in Senate Bill 37, run by Dan Duffy out of Barrington. And nobody in Springfield wanted to have a conversation about that transparency legislation. So I think oftentimes it does take an organization from outside of politics to spearhead an effort like this, and we are proud to do so and lead on it.
Adam, Charles Butler, talk show host. What is going to happen when someone finds an anomaly and tries to address that issue? I mean, how do we bring restitution to the state or to the entity that we're talking about?
Well, I think the best way to answer your question is what's actually happened this spring. This spring, we had to file 22 separate Freedom of Information Act requests, purely and simply to find out how much the village manager of Palatine makes. And we determined that he made $338,000 of total compensation in a 12-month period. Then he came through on his own with nearly $50,000 of foregos. So transparency does certainly save taxpayer money.
Thank you.
Adam, are you going to run for anything?
I'm not going to be on the ballot in 2012, and I think it's way too premature to talk about 2014. What I've chosen to focus on is the next couple budget cycles. Illinois faces budget crisis in every single one of the budgets going forward. And so we could actually have a gubernatorial debate right now with Kirk Dillard and myself and Matt Murphy. But I think all of us agree it's much too premature to have that debate. Illinois faces fiscal crisis now, and we'll join together to come up with the good policy solutions to move the state forward.
Adam, could you speak on the city manager of Heron, Illinois, and where he is rated amongst the 50 governors amongst the United States as far as pay?
Well, the superintendent of schools in the tiny town of Heron, Illinois, and Heron is 45 miles away from the Kentucky border, out-earns Governor Quinn, and in fact, on base salary alone, he out-earns 49 out of the 50 governors. So transparency and shining the light on excessive, highly compensated individuals, it's not a 6-county problem, it's not a problem specific to any one geographic area of the state. It's a symptom of Illinois, and the people need to stay engaged on that.
What's his name, how much does he get paid, who's that, Aaron?
I don't talk about names because it's not personal. I feel that the problem is systemic to the system, so I would like to talk about systemic problems. I don't even know his name, but you can research on our portal under active public schools, and if you go to employer, government employer, and on a drop-down box, the Heron School District, and if you organize the employees and rank them by pay, he'll be the top earner in the district.
Do you remember the number?
Heron only has one school district. It's a tiny town of 5,000 people, and so it should be fairly easy to find.
Adam, what insight so far has come out of this in terms of illuminating the gargantuan unfunded liabilities in the defined benefit programs that the public employees are enjoying?
Well, it's interesting. What we've been able to determine by looking at the data in our portal is many of these pay and pension decisions are made by local units of government. And so for the first time, the citizens in a locale have access to insider information and will be able to hold their elected officials accountable for pay and pension decisions. So I think it's going to go a long way that if the people feel that compensation is excessive or unfair or not reasonable, then the people will have the tools to rein it in.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.